What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 2006 mixtape by Young Dro. Basically, this project is called Day One, and it came out in the spring of 2006. The thing about this particular mixtape is just the fact that the thing about this particular project is this is one of Young Dro's breakout projects. I'd have to say this is a Gangsta Grillz tape, so this is produced by DJ Drama and stuff. That he helped helm this particular project, and this is a pretty good breakout for Young Dro just because he really blew up with like 2006's Best Thing Smokin album, which had a couple hit singles on there like Shoulder Lane and then Rubber Band Banks and some of those type ones. But I'd have to say both of those songs can be found on this particular mixtape. So this is kind of the breakout project, kind of similar to Jeezy's Trap or Die, which blew up in early 2005, which helmed the way for Thug Motivation 101. That's kind of what Young Dro had a similarity to. It's the same sort of pitch, and this is a pretty heralded mixtape here. I would definitely have to say this has got some good stuff on here, despite the fact that it does have 6 songs that are on other projects on the Grand Hustle label, one of which is on In the Streets Volume 4 from late 2006, but the other 5 songs are on the basic. Actually, I would say there might be 7 songs in other projects because there's actually 6 songs from Best Thing Smokin on this particular project that show up on that particular album, which is kind of unfortunate. I would have liked some more new stuff. I do think that this is a pretty breakout project and a big deal back in early 2006 to get Young Dro's name kind of out there. Because I kind of wondered why Shoulder Lane just kind of, because back in the day it was kind of odd that Shoulder Lane just kind of blew up out of nowhere. So this is the particular project that it was first helmed upon. This is the particular project that it was first helmed upon. It's a pretty good concept kind of see this particular type of stuff because this, like I was saying, this is a pretty heralded mixtape here. There's a lot of good noise about it. Just some good stuff on here. T.I.'s on here a number of times. I definitely would recommend going for all the songs that T.I. and Young. I would definitely recommend going for all the songs that T.I. and Young Dro do together because these are definitely some pitch ones. You'll find a couple PSC members on here like Big Country King. I'm gonna have to get some more. I'm gonna have to get to some more Big Country Kings projects. I'd have to say, but it's a good concept kind of get this particular one. So once again, this is helmed by DJ Drama. So this is an official Gangsta Grillz, which these are some of the biggest deals in mixtapes as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. And this is before Young Dro even dropped an album. So I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept. Get this one in particular. Has some TI affiliation, stuff like that. Just a lot of good Dirty South kind of trap cuts as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. Just some good stuff. Obviously, it has Shoulder Lane and Rubber Band Banks on here, which are 2 particular dope singles, I'd have to say. But the concept about it is it does have, I do kind of feel like some of this new stuff kind of showcases Young Dro pretty well. And really, out of 20 songs on this particular mixtape, there's really only 3 songs I don't recommend in some fashion. Now, the thing about it is there are like 7 songs that are on other albums and actual official projects that came out later in CD format. But I would have to say, out of 20 songs, yeah, basically 17 of them I wound up recommending. So it's a pretty good concept. I just would have to say it's just kind of hodgepodge just because a lot of these you can find elsewhere, but still some quality on here. Would have to say it's just a good concept. Kind of see a lot of these, just some good stuff. Just overall has the pitch of that, just some trap cuts. I do like some of these songs that T.I. and Young Dro kind of do and such. Pharrell can freestyle pretty well, which I wasn't aware of. I thought he was at least a good lyric writer as far as that pitch kind of happens, but he has pretty good freestyle on one of these songs called Trap or Kill Yourself. I'd have to say it's a good freestyle to Jeezy's Trap or Die, I'd have to say. So it's a dope concept to kind of get that particular one. Just some good stuff kind of on here. A lot of these have a pretty good pitch overall. So I'd have to say the thing about Young Dro is he's a pretty capable lyricist. He's actually an interesting lyricist. He's one that I like listening to from the Dirty South as far as that pitch kind of happens. I just would have to suppose he's up there with T.I. as far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of goes. Young Dro can run with T.I. as far as that lyricism particularly kind of happens with this. Just some good stuff to kind of see. He's actually one of the better PSC members at his lyrics as far as that pitch kind of happens. He just has a distinct style. He'll say like the fruit punch Chevy and things like that, the watermelon drop and things like that. It's just some pretty good interesting pitches to kind of get his colorful, it's just some interesting pitches to kind of get his colorful imagery as far as that sort of stuff happens. He just has a vivid kind of imagery that works pretty well. He's a pretty good lyricist. On top of that, he picks some of the right words to kind of rhyme and stuff, so it's a good concept. He's not just like a slack kind of typical ringtone rap kind of artist around this particular time. He had some stuff. It's just kind of the concept. The problem with it, one of the few minor problems is just the fact that Young Dro just doesn't really have like a full-blown single. I think apart from like Shoulder Lane and a little bit of Rubber Band Banks, I would have to say the unfortunate thing about it is a lot of these are pretty stellar mixtape cuts and they work pretty well. They definitely have some good casual sense. I feel like Young Dro does have that casual appeal, so this is a popular project to kind of play around your pals and stuff like that. Some good smoking tunes, some good snackage tunes, some good evening residential stuff like that, but it just doesn't have like a full-blown smash on the par. It just doesn't have a full-blown smash on the par with Shoulder Lane and Rubber Band Banks. Those are the basic 2 biggest songs on here in terms of the mixtape format, and those wound up being on the album. But I'd have to say, I mean, this has some good bubblers on here. So I would just recommend this particular project if you absolutely can't get enough of Young Dro from 2006. Pretty good pitch. This is primary Young Dro. I'd have to say it's another hit project. This is probably the second most notable project by Young Dro, at least up to this point, I'd have to say. Now, I know he dropped albums later. He dropped an album way out in 2013. That was actually like the second album that he dropped. It took him 7 years, but I guess he had an album in 2001, but that was kind of independent. But after Best Thing Smokin', it took until 2013 for him to finally drop another album, and he almost dropped an album in 2008, 2009, but it kind of got delayed because the singles just didn't chart. But he did drop a series of mixtapes. This is definitely one of the more notable ones just because it's primary Young Dro and has some the Gangsta Grills affiliation, stuff like that, just some extra kind of bubbling kind of cuts on here just with some evening pitches and stuff like that. A lot of great hangout type tunes, I'd have to say. So basically, I'll go ahead and recommend the 17 songs out of 20 I recommend. It might just be easier just to not recommend the 3 songs I don't recommend. So the only 3 songs I don't recommend on here would just be We Getting Rich, Don't Believe That Shit, and Nah. Which basically the concept about those particular songs is just the fact that they just don't have like a very interesting type pitch. I'd have to say Nah was just kind of a riled up type song that just didn't deliver quite as well as it needed to. That one was just trying to be like an energetic type one that just didn't really deliver on that particular pitch. I'd say We Getting Rich is just kind of an optimistic kind of hustle type tune that just really fell flat. Just didn't really have the energy or the scope of trying to get you riled up as far as that pitch kind of being motivated as far as that kind of happened with it. And then Don't Believe That Shit was just kind of like a mid-pace kind of one. Something kind of like an in-between type trap cut, something like that. That just is kind of one to kind of get you riled up, but just kind of like an in-between. Listen to it like 5:30, 6:30 p.m. just getting ready to step out a bit, but it just didn't really deliver. It was just one of the few ones that just Young Dro just kind of dropped the ball in terms of like a more riveting type pitch as far as that kind of goes. But it's just some of these optimistic and kind of just more riled type ones. I mean, I feel like Young Dro has some of these qualities, but I just think the concept, some of these were just kind of some awkward songwriting that just didn't deliver as far as that pitch can happen. So I definitely think he needed more songs like Rubber Band Banks, maybe another song like Presidential. Maybe, yeah, another song like Presidential, another song like What It Is, another song like Gangsta Shit, another song like Shell, some of those type ones I'd have to suppose. Just some good concepts to kind of get those in particular. But yeah, basically, so to talk about some of these on here, like some of the mixtape freestyles, I'd have to say basically the 6 songs that you recommend on here, basically all the songs that you can find on Best Thing Smokin' I still recommend, because that's basically a classic. I'd have to say Best Thing Smokin' is basically like a Dirty South classic. I'd have to say definitely out of 2006. That album just had loads of boilers on there. This was southern. It was just kind of southern hip hop done right. I'd have to say plenty of songs like Rubber Band Banks and Presidential and Shoulder Lean and some of those type ones, and Girlfriend and some of those type ones that had Ti. So all of these songs that you find on this particular mixtape that would wind up on there: Rubber Band Banks, Shoulder Lean, Gangsta Shit, Swear They Smoking Me, which is They Don't Really Know About Dro. Cartoon, which is on the iTunes edition. Cartoons, which I'm going to talk about, but that's on the iTunes edition. Presidential, some of those type ones. And then Tell Them What They Want to Hear, which is on the In the Streets Volume 4, which is kind of a tougher to find album by Grand Hustle and T.I. and some of those type folks that had to say. But it's a good concept to kind of get some of those. They are hits just to find in mixtape form if you want to get them here. But I would just recommend getting Young Dro's album. And then to talk about some of these freestyle type tunes, which there are some good ones on here. I mean, obviously you get a Young Buck classic like Stomp. That's a pretty good one. It's a good night out kind of riveting type pitch that just gets you riled a little bit. Young Dro's pretty competent at rapping, so it's a good concept to get that one. I was really surprised by Trap or Kill Yourself, which is basically Trap or Die. I just would have to say it's a good pitch. T.I. does an excellent job on this particular song. He shows up at the end. Pharrell is a pretty good freestyle rapper, which I didn't realize is a good concept, and Young Dro does a great job on here. All 3 of them tear apart this particular song. It's a real nice one to kind of go in on. Gotcha Girl Saying is a good concept of like a Jay-Z song, I want to say. That's a pretty good blueprint type style. It's one of those songs. I remember it's one of Jay-Z's earlier albums, I'd have to say. It was a good concept just to get some soulful ladies type songs just within that particular pitch. Young Dro really nails that one just to kind of have like a different swing of things, just from a variation from just all the southern cuts, I'd have to say. So that's a good concept. Watch Dro Spit is a pretty nice one. This is like a good stepping out in like a chivalrous kind of sense, I'd have to say. Just a real graceful type one. It's interesting to kind of get some chivalry in like a mixtape sense. It's a pretty good concept because Young Dro was pretty elegant back in 2006. He had a lot of pretty elegant outfits like T.I. I'd have to suppose. That's a pretty good concept for that one. And then like The Day After is another nice one. So that's just kind of the concept about that. So, and then The Day After is just a typical kind of Don Cannon type Jeezy type beat that works pretty well. Just a good soulful type one to kind of get in like a hustle type sense. That's a pretty nice one to of course kind of get. This one that was on Jeezy's The Inspiration, I'd say. So that's a nice one. But to talk about some of these original songs I recommend on here, basically a lot of these are pretty good. Cartoon's a pretty good highlighted one. Definitely recommend this for like some smokers. This is like some woozy kind of groggy smokage bop of a song, I'd have to say. Definitely, it's a real good residential turn up, I would have to say. Pretty nice hangout cut into some social pep that this song particularly kind of has. So I definitely appreciate this one. It's a real nice one, I'd have to say. And That's How It Is a pretty highlighted one also. This is like a darker kind of ruminating trap cut, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good one for that. Just has some character about it. Real nice concept for that particular pitch. It's just some good evening residential pace, I'd have to say. So this is a pretty good turn up type one. This is a pretty good one to kind of get some smokage and snackage, things like that. Just visiting gas stations and pitches like that, convenience stores, drugstores, some of those type pitches, just in like the 6:30, 7:30 p.m. type sense. I mean, some of these songs, a lot of these songs on here just have a lot. The thing about Young Dro on this particular project is a lot of these kind of have like more of like an evening kind of pep about them. I mean, apart from like Rubber Band Banks and Shoulder Lean, not many of these songs kind of have like a nightclub kind of boisterous kind of sense. But I have to suppose a lot of these just that I recommend they're like the new songs that are actually new and not on other albums. I'd have to say have some pretty good evening pep about them. I do feel like Cartoon's like a pretty woozy kind of could be evening type sense. That's How It Is like, I mean, this has a pretty menacing type beat on here. That's How It Is. Pretty nice one to kind of get. It's interesting for Young Dro because it's not typical kind of southern fare as far as that kind of goes. Barely feels like a trap cut, but Young Dro pulls it off pretty well. It's a pretty good concept for that. What the Hell Are Those is a pretty nice one. I'd have to say this is like a good dreary kind of companion to Cartoon. I would definitely feel like this is just a druggy kind of stunt song for some whips and vehicles. I'd have to definitely suppose. So this is one where Young Dro just kind of flosses like his vehicle collection and stuff like that. Just some good concepts to kind of stunt and go out some of those type pitches. I mean, it's not like a full-blown kind of pull-up song, but definitely kind of one just to kind of have for just being dreary, maybe having some smokage in your systems and stuff like that, just feeling a little bit groggy, some of that type of stuff, just some dreary kind of day after hours kind of malaise, done with work, but still kind of in the pitch of some kickback, but just in the concept of just being around a vehicle and things like that, just kind of the concept of some stunting life, but just kind of in the concept of also smoking pretty well also, so that's a good concept for that. What it is kind of a looming in the cut kind of typical antics tune, I'd have to say. This is definitely a smoke one, feel good type bop, I would definitely feel like, and this just has some mid-social kind of peps. I definitely appreciate this one. It's definitely good to get some of these Young Dro and T.I. type songs, like I was saying before. It's a pretty good pitch to kind of see some of that particular type stuff, I'd have to say. This definitely has some mid-social type pep. This is just kind of a hangout type cut. I would definitely feel like this typical antics, that type fare, just smokage, stuff like that, some good snackage, those sorts of pitches. Pretty good evening type fare, I'd have to suppose. Just like the concept of overall some of these type pitches. Just a vanilla type cut, I'd have to suppose. Pretty simple type concept. Doesn't really jump off the page in terms of like an extreme sense, like you have to absolutely know about this song. But it's definitely some definite good music to kind of have when you get the smoke sessions and hangout sessions kind of going as far as that pitch kind of happens. If you're a fan of Young Dro, but you want like some songs that are just some immediate type ones, at least in the sense of like some ones to kind of listen to for like some good kind of turn up type fare, this is a good one to kind of start with once Shoulder Lean and Rubber Band Banks kind of get boring. This is a highlighted one to kind of have, even if it's not quite as nightclub and just quotable flashy as like Rubber Band Banks and Shoulder Lean, I had to say, but it's still a good concept. That's definitely in the first half of the songs that you should probably listen to by Young Dro. I would say is what it is with T.I. on there on the hooks. Pretty good concept for that. And then Shell's another highlighted one. This is one where T.I. drops a verse, and then there's a PSC cat on there that drops a verse also. This is like a stellar kind of typical 2000s trap bop, I'd have to say. This song definitely gives some Jeezy vibes, I would have to suppose, and this has a pretty steadfast pace, and it's just good for like a regular evening type fare. So a lot of these this is a great pairing with What It Is, I'd have to suppose, and also pretty good pairing with Cartoon and What the Hell Are Those. These are just some good evening type fare just for like smoke sessions, things like that. Just stuff like smoke sessions, things like that. Just some of those type pitches, just pull up type tunes. Just a good kind of pitch to have for like some residential type fare as far as that particular pitch kind of has with it. Just some great concepts kind of get a lot of these. I do like the fact that a lot of the PSC members are kind of on here. They help back up Young Dro quite a bit, and these are just some real great evening companion pieces to kind of have like some unwinding and just kickback just within like a snackage and smokage type sense that I have supposed. So this is just some good kind of after hours, just kind of relaxers and just R&R type stuff just with your pals and stuff like that. Pretty social album, I'd have to say. Pretty social mixtape. And then Go Get You Some. With Big Country King's a pretty highlighted one. Definitely appreciate this one. This is like some more good evening pep, I would definitely have to say. This is a getting ready to step out type malaise, I would definitely feel like, and this song just gives some exhilarating kind of vibes. So this is definitely one of the more energized type ones. This is kind of like a bubbler compared to Shoulder Lean, Rubber Band Banks, Presidential, some of those type ones. I mean, definitely the breadwinners that are on Best Thing Smoking are the ones that you want to immediately go for if you haven't heard about the Best Thing Smoking, or if you don't don't full blown know about the Best Thing Smoking album, I'd have to say. But this is a particular concept. This some of these songs on here like Get You Some. This one's not quite as much of like a lazy kind of smoke session. Or Go Get You Some is not as much of like a lazy kind of smoke session where you're gonna stick around the house and just kind of play it cool, stuff like that. I'd have to suppose this a different kind of exhilarating type pitch for getting ready to step out and have some good night out kind of stunting on the town kind of vibes as far as that pitch kind of has with it. So some good concepts. That's definitely kind of one to get you pepped. It's definitely a pretty good one to get you pepped up and energized as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept for that. So that's basically the mixtape as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. So I'd have to say me basically recommending pseudo kind of 17 songs out of 20. I mean, the project is definitely pretty affable, so I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like a 9 out of 10. I know that's a pretty high score considering all the songs that can be found on Best Thing Smokin' and other Grand Hustle type projects, but I just would have to say this mixtape is just pretty chock full of hits, I'd have to suppose. Just a great concept. The freestyles are all excellent. The guest verses on here, T.I. and PSC really do a great job. Pharrell's on here pretty well. It's just some great concepts to kind of get some of these. This has a lot of exciting content on here, I'd have to say. It's a pretty good burst of energy, and Young Dro really delivers on this particular project. And I'd say it's up there with like Best Thing Smokin' as some of his best work. Definitely some primary Young Dro, I'd have to suppose. It's just the fact that there's a lot of songs you can find elsewhere, but still pretty good pitch to say that this is damn near like a classic mixtape. If I would have given it a 10 if it would have had more songs that would have been original, not to Best Thing Smokin', I'd have to say. But still going to get a high enough score because still going to get a high enough score just because there's only 3 songs I don't recommend, I'd have to say. But the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give like a 9.5 out of 10. I'd almost give it a 10 if it would have had a few more new songs and stuff like that. I definitely feel like the energy behind this particular album is pretty crazy. Young Dro has some pretty great lyrics on here. He's definitely in his prime and has the character and just affable personality as far as that pitch can have. Some good night out kind of vibes, some good hangout session type tunes, just in like an evening sense. Most of the songs I recommend are more of evening hangout type boss, but there are some nightclub songs. Just the fact that he saved all those for Best Thing Smokin' as far as that pitch can have. So it's just kind of the concept about that. But there are some night out ones, Presidential, Rubber Band Banks, Shoulder Lean, some of those type ones, Cartoon, Gangsta Shits, Where They Smoking Me. Some of those type ones are just the more nightclub kind of stepping out in like a jazzy kind of outing kind of sense, I'd have to suppose. So it's just that's why I didn't talk about the more nightclub type moments, because they're all in Best Thing Smoking, but still a pretty good concept. So 9.5 out of 10. In terms of the future, like I don't really know what Young Dro's been up to in recent times. I know he's dropped a series of mixtapes, so I am going to get to some more of these. Eventually, I'll probably review Young Dro's 2013 album, I'd have to say, but it's a dope enough concept. This is a Gangsta Girls tape on top of that, so I do highly recommend this project quite a bit. It's just primary Young Dro, I'd have to say.